In today's show, Tom Dundon is set to buy the Portland Trail Blazers. But how much will new ownership impact roster decisions for the Portland Trail Blazers this season? Welcome to Locked On Blazers. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Trailblazers, your daily Portland Trailblazers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What's up, world? It's your past first point guard and Trailblazers reporter Mike Richmond. You're listening to another episode of Locked On Blazers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, available wherever you get podcasts, and also on YouTube. Thanks for making this show your first listen. Coming at you 3 days a week through the rest of August and into the first week or so of September. Then we'll be back to 5 days a week as the season gets going. In today's program, we're going to talk about new ownership. The Blazers are set to have a new owner. There's some reporting that suggests that new ownership is going to be in place before the end of the season. What is that going to mean for the decisions this team makes this year? That's what we're going to talk about in today's show. There's been a bunch of good reporting about Tom Dundon's transition to purchasing the team from The Athletic, from a very good story in the Oregonian about a bankruptcy case that Dundon finds himself currently involved in. We'll get into all of that and try to sort of hash out what new ownership might mean for the decisions, because before it was into the future. Hey, the Blazers are going to have the new ownership. How will that impact some of the decisions they make? Now, according to The Athletic, the new ownership is aiming to be in place before the end of this regular season. You'll remember right here on Locked On Blazers, I had initially reported, you heard it here first, that it was going to take about 9 to 12 months for the sale to close. March 31st, which was reported by the Oregonian, is right at like 10 months. That is kind of right in the anticipated range. But here's the deal. Jason Quick of the Oregonian, or excuse me, Jason Quick formerly of the Oregonian, of The Athletic, reported the following. There is hope that there is a purchase agreement signed. That is a purchase and sale agreement signed in September with a target closing date of March 31st, 2026. That's like a week left in the season, right? The season usually ends at that first week of April, or maybe the April 15th roughly. The 10th, and then so it would be the final few days of the regular season. Then you get into the offseason draft and all of that good stuff, potentially the playoffs, because the Blazers are going to be really good, obviously. But that gives you a sense of how slow this process is going to be and how quick this process is going to be, right? Because if ownership is in place by the end of March, well, any decisions made at February 15th's, trade deadline, it's certainly going to have to be run by new ownership. You're not going to make any decisions that are not stamped seal of approval for the new billionaire owner that is coming in to take charge 6 weeks later. All of the in-season decisions will be a part of Tom Dundon's purview. Like, they're going to be part of his. He will be, I don't know if he'll have to sign off on every single one, but certainly if he doesn't want something to happen, it will not happen. And I think we have evidence of a transition similar to this across the league, which I'll talk about to close the show. But there's a little more to it than just like, yeah, this dude's going to take over in March and he's going to get to make some of the biggest decisions even before he's in charge. And obviously once he's in charge, he'll get to make all the big decisions. One of the things that's recognized, and Jason Quick of The Athletic wrote like a mini profile of Dundon, very, very short piece, but kind of like as sort of like hard reporting character. This is what this dude is like, type of reporting that we've seen on about what Dundon is like in terms of like on the record reporting, as opposed to some sort of larger speculation type stuff. I will say that, and the reporting I have attempted to do around this, I have heard that Tom Dundon is extremely capable as a negotiator and business and someone who runs a business, and not particularly likable. Sources have indicated that he fits some of the billionaire stereotypes to me, and I believe that. But in any case, the story from The Athletic acknowledges the very obvious elephant in the room that is like the whole big deal around this, that I think people point to either just as like sort of trolling, or just like with like failing to accept like the truth truth of the matter context. The Blazers are going to need a new stadium one way or another, because the Allen estate has expressed, according to the Athletic, Allen estate has expressed their desire for the team to remain in Portland, and Dundon and his ownership group have expressed a willingness and a desire for the team to remain in Portland. But at the end of that sentence, there's always a but, and there's an if, and that's the big thing here. It's like, the folks telling you, like, they're definitely going to move. This is exactly what Howard Schultz and Clay Bennett said before they left Seattle. You know why the team left Seattle? Because they didn't build them a new arena. That's it. That's what's on the table here. If there are the sort of political powers at work in Portland want the team to remain here. The mayor wants the team to remain here in the city. The governor wants the team to remain here in the city. They don't want even the team to move. They want major renovations to take place at the Moda Center for it to be upgraded to, a state-of-the-art arena and have it be a place that can house the team forever and not, build a new arena in town. But make no mistake, the options are significant renovations to the Moda Center or a new arena. There is no world in which that doesn't happen. If there is a world where that doesn't happen, that's when the Portland Trail Blazers move. That's when you get Oklahoma City situation. Anyone telling you that there's an option where both could happen is just silly. I think what the real truth is that Tom Dundon wants to own the team, and he wants to own the team here, and he wants to own the team with a well publicly funded new arena one way or another. According to The Athletic, and I'm going to quote here briefly, this is from Quick. The source said, while there are issues with the Moda Center, ranging from its small visitors' locker room and the quality of the suites, quote, nothing about the arena is a deal breaker on its own. It's a lot of little things that add up. And that's it, right? Like, I've talked a lot about here on like how sort of the larger move for most of these new owners in places, not just in the NBA but across sports, is a larger real estate play. It is a larger real estate development that both they and the sort of power brokers in any given community can get involved in. And I think that's what you're looking for. That's exactly what happened in Raleigh with the Carolina Hurricanes after Dundon purchased them as a large, with a bunch of public money involved in its revitalization of the existing arena and the area around the arena, et cetera, et cetera. The Blazers don't have, and Portland doesn't have, an easy way to develop maybe immediately around the arena, but there could be a world in which the arena is upgraded. That has to happen. At a minimum, for the team to stay here, they absolutely have to have a nice an arena that it fits sort of the standards. And I'm not talking like to me, like, I don't know, like the media room's not very nice or whatever, but it's totally functional. If you go to games, it's a totally functional, acceptable arena to attend. I'm talking to like the standards of this new billionaire class of ownership, and also like the Moda Center is the oldest arena in the NBA that has not undergone significant renovations. It's one of the oldest arenas in the NBA, period, but it is factually the oldest arena in the NBA that has not been significantly renovated. That has to happen. But as I've mentioned now a couple times, it's probably going to happen with some version of public and private money, like some version of taxpayer money will fund it. We'll see how much. I think there's a trend around the league, and we're seeing it now in San Antonio, and we've seen it now in Oklahoma City, where like a significant chunk comes from the public. And like, my personal politics and preferences aside about like what I feel about that seems to be where this is headed, right? That seems to be where this is headed. But part of the reason why it might be headed there is because like, is Tom Dundon cash poor? The perception of Dundon when he purchased the team is that he's rich, right? Like he's in the billionaire class, but he's not like this sort of like wild find $600 million in the couch type of wealthy, right? He's just like, he's among the very rich, but even then there are levels, right? And as Tim Donnelly, who was on the show from 99.9 The Fan in Raleigh, mentioned that like the sort of the perception from Canes fans is that Tom Dundon was maybe a little cash poor. He had a bunch of money, but it was all tied up in investments. And to be truly liquid, to make these big moves, they were kind of surprised that he had that much sort of liquid capital in order to do something like purchase an NBA team. And in fact, according to some reporting from the Oregonian, earlier this year, in earlier 2025, there was court records in which Tom Dundon indicated his net worth was $2 billion. That ain't enough money to buy an NBA team. Like, just math-wise. To be the controlling owner of an NBA team, you have to own more than 20% of the team. According to the reporting from The Athletic, the team is going to sell for $4.25 billion. So just like quick math, that's over $1 billion in cash, like that you would have to put down, like the actual hard money to put down to purchase the team. If you have $2 billion, you're not going to put half of your wealth, right? Can you do that? Can you even get creditors putting down 50% of all of everything that you have? And is $2 billion is cash or $2 billion is overall wealth? Like, my question is, does Tom Dundon have enough money to do all of this, or are we looking at, or do we just not know? And this isn't going to be where I am like, welcome to pocket peeping, where I find someone who has a ton of money and try to tell him that he doesn't have enough. No, like obviously this is an extremely rich person on to a scale that I don't even can't quite fathom with my current lifestyle and tax bracket. But the people who buy NBA teams, people who buy professional sports teams in North America typically have more money than this. And part of the sort of mess and part of the reason that we know on the record, in a court record, about Tom Dundon's cash, is because he's going through a messy bankruptcy. He's in a lawsuit about a now defunct football league, the beautiful Alliance of American Football, which lasted for a few months in 2019, and now Tom Dundon is in a mess because of it. We're going to learn a little bit about him through these court records, and perhaps this could be, if not a hiccup, at least something to keep an eye on. Let's talk about that in the second segment, because there is more to this man as we learn more about him, who's about to own the basketball team in town. Join me in that second segment. First, though, I want to tell you that today's program is brought to you by FanDuel. August 26th is officially FanDuel Futures Day, a brand new holiday for football fans who live for bold predictions and preseason hunches. For just 24 hours, FanDuel is giving you deals on NFL season predictions, so whether you're calling your MVP, Cam Hayward, eyeing a long shot division winner, the Pittsburgh Steelers, or ready to crown your Super Bowl champ before Week 1 even kicks off, this is your moment. So respect one of the most underrated players of his generation in the MVP race, Cameron Hayward. Crown your champion in August, the Pittsburgh Steelers. Or parlay your division winner dark horses, whoever else you want, and the AFC North Division champion Pittsburgh Steelers. Visit the FanDuel app today. Start planning your futures bets now, because Futures Day is one day and one day only. It's FanDuel. Play your game. All right. So some really good reporting by Matthew Kish of The Oregonian. This is probably the best reporting around Dundon and his sort of business finances as we've seen anyone do. And so Matthew Kish of The Oregonian reports that basically it's a longer story that you should definitely check out. I will link to it in the episode description for this episode. But essentially in 2019, there was going to be this sort of post-NFL professional football league called the Alliance of American Football. It launched in February of 2019, and part of the sort of its launch was a investment and an influx of cash from an investor, Tom Dundon. The idea being that he publicly committed to investing $250 million in the league, but he only wrote a check for $70 million. And then once he got sort of a little bit closer look at the team and the finances, started talking with the people who had maybe originally discussed with him the type of investment that it would take, he said, yeah, I'm not giving you any more money. Hell no. The league opened in February 2019. It stopped operating in April of 2019 and filed for bankruptcy on April 17th. It immediately went belly up. And Tom Dundon was supposed to be the face of it. He was doing media tours and like appearing on Rich Eisen's show. And he was, when they were writing about this, people breathlessly describing this big investment in this new league that was going to take place basically right after the Super Bowl into the summertime, then be this, be the sort of more serious version of some of these alternate football leagues. Dundon was the guy parading around and being celebrated for putting $250 million into this. And so he is being taken to court in this bankruptcy case because they say he's on the hook for the money he didn't pay. He wrote them a check for $70 million. But the promise, particularly publicly, was that he would give them $250 million, or if you're doing the math at home, $180 more million. Dundon's response basically is that he never formally agreed to invest $250 million. And instead of, just throwing all that money in, is that he, as a shrewd business person, committed the money he could to get it started, because he's pretty invested in sports across the league, across the world. His portfolio is like, he's like has a 10% stake in Topgolf. Obviously, he owns Carolina Hurricanes. He's big in the pickleball world. Like, sports investment, along with some real estate stuff, has sort of been his MO recently. That's kind of where he has chosen to put his money. And his argument is that, he wrote this check. He was the cash cow. He was it's what rich people do. It's what the uber wealthy do. You write this check, but then when he got a little bit, when he got closer look at how the league was operating, what their expenses were, how many employees they had, what the actual revenue would be on the back end, he said, there's no way I can just throw another $180 million at this. I'm out. And so instead of just throwing the money that he had maybe verbally promised, he pulled the plug. And then he realized that this thing was this was always destined to go belly up. And instead of chasing it, he decided just to say, yeah, I'm done. Like, I'm not going to invest any more money. I'm out of here. So the argument is a couple things here. And I think only one of them is majorly relevant to the Blazers. A lot of this is indeed like pocket peeping, right? Like, we're looking at the uber wealthy's bank account and being like, he's broke, you're broke. But I will say this story is where we get the reporting that court records suggest that Tom Dundon had a net worth of $2 billion. Simply does not seem like enough money to purchase an NBA team. But if you do only have $2 billion and you are in this sort of messy court bankruptcy case that is going to, maybe you lose and you're going to pay $180 million. In addition, like, that seems like money if you only have $2 billion and you owe, say, 10% of that in a bankruptcy case, can you really afford to buy an NBA team? I think this is worth following, right? I'm not suggesting that it's broken up. What I'm actually suggesting is the opposite. I bet he has more money than that. I feel like reading this story, all of this suggests is that Tom Dundon holds his cards very close to his vest, and if he never has to say anything about what kind of money and investments he's working with, he never will. Because the story really, what it is, the crux of it, is that there were press releases that touted this $250 million, and there were stories in The Athletic and ESPN that touted this $250 million. And then when Dundon appeared on the Rich Eisen show, he did not dispute the fact, and maybe even confirmed it in these in press releases and in media articles and in a media appearance, confirmed, yeah, I'm investing $250 million in this. But what the real deeper truth might be is that there was a term sheet, and the term sheet said he would give $70 million and never more. And so what I'm saying here, what I'm trying to connect the dots for you here, is that this is a man who knows how to win in public. And if in public it is better for his investment to say, yeah, I got $250 million, doesn't that look good? But in reality, he had no intention of giving any more money. And when he got closer, really had no intention. Said, yeah, I'm killing this thing. I'm just going to let it die. It's a terrible investment. This is the same type of person who might misrepresent their overall net worth during a bankruptcy case, right? I would say what we more learn about Dundon through this reporting is probably not his overall wealth. I do think, in terms of the uber wealthy, he's not on that level. But I do think the willingness to present one thing in public and show one thing in public versus how you operate privately and behind the scenes, and your overall intentions being not something that comes out in the lights. There's a quote in there about trying to sort of win in the media while not totally telling the truth, allowing the sort of the fibs to go in the media. This to me strikes me as a guy who is maybe very capable of pulling off some of these things, buying really expensive billion-dollar assets and turning them into things that are more productive, but also someone that is willing to be, if not outright deceitful, he is competent enough to be misleading in the things that help his public persona. So Well, this isn't true pocket peeping. I'll stop here. Tom Dundon is in a bankruptcy lawsuit in which someone is trying to, a group of people are trying to say he owes them $180 million. Some of the reporting during that suggests that he only has $2 billion bucks. If both of those things are true at the same time, his purchase of the Trailblazers seems a little bit fraught. But if he never gets got for this messy bankruptcy case, and he actually has a lot more money than $2 billion because that's court reporting and all of these things and how you move around assets and LLCs and all of the sort of weird billionaire tricks you can pull off, then this is just another thing that rich people go through, and he's going to skate free, and then he's going to get here, and we're going to build him a big old stadium with our public money, and my man is going to win again. But that doesn't answer the question I set out to answer at the beginning of the show. Is like, okay, can this guy even buy the team? That's kind of what I was getting at here. My conclusion is, yeah, probably. All this is a mess. All this spider web just seems like the type of spider webs that people who are really wealthy, but not so wealthy to crush this and make it go away, can get caught in. But the reporting from The Athletic suggests that if Luka Doncic had been available last year, well, if Tom Dundon had owned the Blazers, he would have been in on the ground floor trying to get Luka Doncic to end up in Portland, sort of ignoring the actual facts of that particular trade. But in general, it speaks to something else. If this dude's going to take over in March, and this really is going to go through, and he's going to sign this purchase agreement in September, and this sort of messy financial stuff is actually just a little asterisk, and he's not actually broke. He's not cash poor. He's just wealthy and moving and moving quietly, moving in silence. What do owners typically do? What have new owners done? And the answer is often they put a major stamp on things. Often major changes come, and that might impact the Blazers. Let's talk about that to close the show. Join me there, won't you? Still a pass first point guard. I'm still Mike Richmond. Still listen to Locked On Blazers. So let's say Tom Dundon does take over the team, March 31st, 2026. Like I said, ain't no way you're making any trades without him having a sign-off on it. Throughout this season, and particularly at the trade deadline, everything's going to go through him because he will be the controlling owner 6 weeks after the deadline passes. And we've seen this type of transition in which incoming owners have major say and actually can sign off, if not push forward with major moves. You look at Mark Lowry and Alex Rodriguez. They kind of bought the Timberwolves on layaway because maybe they didn't have enough money. But then the value of NBA franchises went up like threefold during that negotiation. And the Taylors that owned the team were like, oops, $1.5 billion. We screwed up so bad. Please give us our team back. Also, they're good for the first time in 20 years. Oh, no. But during this transition, which was a multi-year transition, several years before they secured full ownership of the franchise, Mark Lowry and Alex Rodriguez were the driving force behind the Minnesota Timberwolves trading for Rudy Gobert. At the time, an outrageously expensive trade with way too much draft capital and too many things and too many valuable parts going to the Utah Jazz in exchange for Rudy Gobert, who, while will easily be a first ballot Hall of Famer, has real flaws. But they were pushing for that before they even had control of the team. They had a bigger vision to take a big swing. And if we know anything about Tom Dundon, doesn't he seem like that? But think about when the Adelson family purchased the Dallas Mavericks and Patrick Dumont, who's the son-in-law of the Adelson family of the owners. They purchased the team in December of 2023. But so heading into their first trade deadline as owners, there was some major moves trading for Daniel Gafford and PJ Washington, but nothing seismic. What seismic happened was the following year, a full year later, a full multiple transaction cycles later. So you get through the trade, you get through the trade deadline, you get through the offseason and the draft and all of those things. And then it's Mark Cuban is no longer, he was like, oh, maybe I'll still be running the team. No, hell no. Once you sell the team, you are not going to be making decisions for other folks who have big type of money. Mark, get out of here. And it was clear that he wasn't in charge, and the Mavericks traded freaking Luka Doncic. But that wasn't right away. That was years down the line, or more than a year, 18 months down the line. That was further along. It's more like 15 months, but it was further along. So certainly new owners made their stamp, and quite frankly, just horrendous, stupid stamp at that, but they made a big splash, right? It just took a little while. Then you look at Matt Ishbia, which I think is what the folks their great fears. Oh no, Tom Dundon's going to be Matt Ishbia. Matt Ishbia bought the Suns in December of 2022. He was officially announced as the new owner on February 7th, 2023. So he becomes the controlling owner, press release, you're in charge. They traded for Kevin Durant deep into the evening on February 8th. Matt Ishbia took over and basically said, yeah, I'm going to call Joe Tsai. We're going to get this deal done with the Brooklyn Nets. I want this to happen. I'm going to do it. This is the type of crazy, aggressive, big old seismic changes that a new kind of excited but maybe not forward-thinking owner can really make. This is the fear, right? This is the fear, is that trading for Kevin Durant is actually good because Kevin Durant is a good basketball player. It's the subsequent moves after you make that type of deal, and it's doing it 24 hours into the job, which is maybe the haul you paid for Kevin Durant, and then you look at Mikal Bridges later got traded for 5 firsts after that, and he was just only a part of the Kevin Durant. It's like whoa. Maybe sort of smarter ownership could have done things differently. But those are 3 examples, right? A new owner in Minnesota who they pushed for a big change even before they got control. New owners in Dallas who signed off on a massive change within a year, a season and a half of taking control, and Matt Ishbia who pushed for a big change 24 hours into the job. But then I would point at Gabe Plotkin and Rick Schnall, who bought the Hornets in 2023. What are the seismic changes the Hornets have made? They've hired a new coach. They've got new people in the front office, certainly, but they haven't made a big signature swing. That would be mischaracterizing what the Hornets have done over the last couple seasons. Or they haven't made massive structural changes, like LaMelo Ball still plays for them, etc. I would say that while there are examples of new owners moving very, very quickly, making major changes, there is an obvious example that you could point to, a counterpoint, where it's some owners just come in, they purchase majority stake of the team, and then they start making the changes that they make. So what do I think Dundon's going to do as we close out the show here? Well, I do think he's going to bring in his own people. I think that is just based on the way he moved in Carolina. I would be very surprised if the front office gets to stay. I'm not saying it's done deal, but it would, to me, this ownership transition probably means a new hand-picked front office decision makers. Things can change, but that's just my gut on this, right? Is that heading into next season, there will be a new decision makers in the front office, maybe even on the business side as well. Harder to know with Chauncey Billups, but the coach is one of the easiest things to change in the NBA. And if you have big money, you can make those changes. Obviously, both Cronin and Chauncey will have 2 years left in their deals, at least reportedly. 2 years left in their deals after this season concludes. So potentially you could just play it out and not have to pay multiple people. But my guess is that Dundon does come in and make those big structural changes. But I view him, while I do think he'll be aggressive and try to build a team that wins, and I think that's one of the key bits of reporting from The Athletic, is that Dundon, first and foremost, is going to try to build a team that is effective, and that has been his sort of driving force into making the Hurricanes profitable and successful, is putting the right people in charge, but also putting a winning product on the ice. In this case, on the hardwood. I think the sort of appetite for a longer tail rebuild, should things go haywire in the next 12 months, probably off the table. This is someone who probably wants to be competitive and build a team that is indeed challenging for playoff spots and getting into the playoffs, et cetera, et cetera. Hockey is not basketball. It is a different ecosystem. It is totally different. But from what we know, Dundon is aggressive. He kind of moves quietly, and when he has been in charge, he has been someone who has been known for being pretty involved in most levels of decision making throughout the organization. The characterization of him running the team in Carolina is that he's fairly hands-on. Fairly hands-on means you probably want your people in the building with you. That's my read there. So do I think the Blazers are going to like make some big swing this year? Probably not, would be my guess. Probably not. I don't think that happens beforehand. But I would say once Dundon is in charge, these sort of big seismic changes coming certainly could happen. If anything, I would bet against seismic changes coming this year before this Dundon is fully in charge and they have, kind of a better sense of where they are. I don't think they'll move too quickly, but I do think once in control, I think, and because of the timing of the ownership change, I think you're much less likely to see sort of major structural changes happen this deadline. But I do think they are coming. And I do think it'll be fascinating to see exactly how they play out. New ownership often puts their stamp on things. The level of stamp, as the examples I shared for you here in this segment, kind of changes to some extent. It could just be new coach, new front office, and then go from there. It could be trade for frickin' Rudy Gobert. It could be cash everything in to get Kevin Durant. It could be trade Luka Doncic for peanuts because you don't know what you're doing. Apologies to Anthony Davis. Very talented peanut. Also will make the Hall of Fame. So I think what we know about Dundon, the profile of Dundon, is that he is going to be aggressive. He is going to be probably fairly private in how he gets things done, but I bet there are big old changes coming eventually at the arena, on the basketball team, and those in and around the basketball team. I bet this is eventually over the next, say, 20 months, including, the transition to ownership in this coming March, a massive, massive time of change for the Trailblazers. That is my read on kind of what we know. Obviously, I will stay abreast of all of the wonderful reporting out there and bring it to you here. We are doing 3 shows this week. I'm going to have a mailbag episode for you later this week, and also at some points, probably coming in your feeds, kind of bad timing because by the time it comes into your feeds, Denny Avdia will already have played, but talk a little bit about Eurobasket and Denny Avdia's participation in that because it's a really fun tournament. What we do 3 days a week in August, and then we'll get back to 5 days a week in the second week of September. Tell your friends about the program. Tell them they can get it wherever they get podcasts, also on YouTube. I appreciate you listening. I'll talk to you soon.